Hi there, welcome to another episode of Open Intro podcast with myself, Joel Blake. Um, this episode is just going to be one that's going to hit you in your heart because when you meet people on your entrepreneurship journey, you resonate on so many different levels. And this gentleman is someone I've met probably nearly 15 years ago, if not slightly longer. And he's always been congruent in everything that he says and everything that he does. And when it comes to entrepreneurship and the reality of that journey, this gentleman has felt that more than so many others. So I would like to introduce the wonderful Ketan Makwana. How are you doing, Ketan? You're right, pal.
I'm very good, Joel. Thank you, and what a welcome! I'm blessed,
No,
privileged.
it's great. No, I think one of the things that we've always said to each other as colleagues and peers in the space is you've got to be really honest and realistic about this journey. But before we really dive into that, I'd like to start with the question that we ask all our guests. In effect, is what is your why? Why do you do what you do?
So, what is your why? It's the Simon Sinek thing, right? Start with your why. Yeah. I think right from the outset, if I was to go to the core answer or the core line that resounds around my why is. When I first started in my journey, it was about proving things to myself. It was more than anything else. It's like the world is, surrounded by different opinions, and people try to impress themselves on their opinions onto you and make you think in a particular way. I'm not talking about brainwashing or anything like that, but more or less that you get influenced by the environment around you. And I've always been in an environment where I've felt that my pure potential and talent has never been unleashed. Whether it was I was at school or whether I was in university or even into the early stages of my career, I always felt that I could do more, but the environment around me just wouldn't let me do it. So my why started with, well, prove to yourself that you can do it. You don't have to prove to anyone else apart from yourself. And I think over the years, what's happened is that's kind of evolved into helping others prove that they have the potential. So I think, my why has always been about mobilization. So I started first by being able to move myself to now actually being able to be a part of other people's ecosystems and helping them move towards or become closer to the things that they desire, want, or attract.
Yeah, I think that's really powerful because you've started from a place of emotional intelligence and self-awareness, which often as entrepreneurs, you start to figure that out a little bit as the journey gets harder
Yeah.
because it forces you to look inside yourself and deal with the proverbial that comes your way.
Yeah.
But what was it about that mindset at that time
Yeah.
that encouraged you to commit to that journey? Because one thing's saying you want to do that for yourself. Another thing is saying I'm dedicated to that and seeing it through.
Yeah. I'm going to be really brutally honest here. I'm not a clever man. My story encourages all my past about being an accidental entrepreneur, and right the other way of I'm a very binary person inside. It's only ones and zeros. So there wasn't ever a situation where I thought this is right or this is wrong. I just go with the gut, the intuition, and say, well, this is it. There's nothing else. So when I started out in the journey of proving to myself, I wasn't thinking about anything else in the world apart from trying to deliver what I believed. And what happens is when you're so blinkered towards that, you don't notice anything apart from the results that you're orientating. You're quite hard on yourself as you're going along the line, but eventually when you do come up for breath and you start looking at the scenery, you think, oh my God, I've hit the peak of a couple of mountains. And there is a saying that I heard once, which I kind of reverberate with a lot of people that I work with. there is a reason why the air at the top of the summit or a mountain is very, very small or short. You're not supposed to be there for a long period of time. The journey up is equally as tough as the journey down. And understand that what you do is once you get to the top of each of your peaks, you should admire the view, make your way down and restart that journey again, because it means that you're going to be able to scale the next summit, which is even higher or bigger than the one that you've done. So it's always about having that kind of, for me, it's been this whole thing of I'm not committed to something because I don't understand what commitment means in that sense. It's either I do it or I don't. That's the way.
Very interesting. Because as entrepreneurs, you often, as you say, you have a summit or an outcome that you're set to achieve.
Yeah.
But it's quite interesting that you say, but you don't look at those summits as a sense of commitment. It's a sense of action. I.e., you're going to do it or you're not going to do it.
Yeah.
So the commitment itself is by proxy because you've already committed to the action.
Yeah, look, we talk about the whole thing of failure as part of success and all of these kind of things, but the problem is when you define success, and this has happened a lot of times when I've either been on panels or podcasts like this where people say, what's your definition of success? And I'm like, it's difficult because it's like asking me what's the perfect moment, and perfection is only momentarily. You can only have a fragment of moment. As soon as that perfection passes, we start again. It's the same with success. So for me, what happens is it's almost an emotional excuse that we give ourselves. But when you're hunting for the success, you end up romanticizing and fantasizing about it and forgetting about doing the work, which means that when you are doing the work, you kind of like, we shouldn't celebrate failure in that respect, but we shouldn't also highlight it. It's part of the journey. I put a post up recently on LinkedIn, and the post actually was talking about when things don't go the way that you plan, don't beat yourself up about it. Yeah. And I said there are certain things that will always go wrong. And I use the analogy of Google Maps. I go, if you're using Google Maps to get somewhere or a sat nav and you take the wrong turn, it doesn't give up on you. It doesn't turn around and say, oh my God, you're a fool. What does it do? It recalculates and it gives you another way of getting there. And I think this is what is instinctive within entrepreneurs. I think there is this natural a natural instinct to understand that the destination is the destination. Success is whatever it is at that destination, but we're not there yet. We've just got to figure out how to get there. Now, sometimes we're going to go down dead end roads. Sometimes we're going to lose a lot of money. Sometimes we're going to lose friends. Sometimes we're going to have to change or pivot the business that we're in. But that's all part of the recalculating that we do as we get there. I mean, if you go back 20 years, to when I really first started and, dropped out of a career because of redundancy and moved into self-employment and enterprise. And if you would have gone back to that Ketan and said to him, oh, in 20 years time, you'll be doing this and you'll be doing this, I'll be like, shut up, and it's difficult, you see, again, because I know when the questions come up, like, what advice would you give to your, 10-year-old junior? And I'll just, and you hear it all the time. It's just keep going, just keep going and doing. And the sentiment behind that, because sometimes people don't understand what it's meant by keep going. It's just keep doing what you're doing, because no one can predict the future. No one knows what it's there. You can only live in the present, and you can only learn from the past. So for me, the whole thing around the mindset and committing to something has been based on look, forget about proving to anyone else. Prove to yourself that you can do it first. And if you can't do that, accept it and just move to the next thing, basically, which is drawing on. Now, some people say, well, it's easy for you to say that, you are where you are. Okay. But the truth of this is entrepreneurship and development and growth and all of this is a lifelong lesson. It's not a periodical thing. I'm still learning. I'm still adapting. I'm still changing as I get older and older and older with this. Okay, my experience builds into wisdom now. Yeah, before my experience was expertise. There are certain shifts. I'm a much calmer person where I'm not as sort of aggressive with my goal hunting and stuff like this. And again, that defines to another post that I put up recently about dopamine, that I made an admission that actually I was a dopamine hunter. And that what I used to do is I used to get a real high about closing deals or getting big things. But then there was also this fake dopamine that I was drawing into, which is all about the instant gratification. And that's because the world that we used to started business in wasn't a social media world. You and I started when it was very holistic, one-to-one, all personable. Now, we all grew through a period where the digital marketer was saying, look, you've got to celebrate your wins, count your wins. And all of a sudden we become this kind of dopamine hunter where we just want people to, yeah. And do you know what that does? You lose sight of why you're doing things in the first place. And it's actually interesting. In that dopamine post, I did say, if things are unraveling in front of you and you're starting to panic, just stop for 5 seconds. Just stop, take a deep breath in, close your eyes, and remember why you started. You asked me about why you're doing it. What's your why? Just remember why you started, because there was a point in time when you were ready to make that jump into whatever it is, the excitement, the intrepidation, the enthusiasm, the motivation, everything was there. You weren't thinking, oh my God, I'm crazy. But yeah, you're probably thinking you're absolutely nuts in that particular way. But it's what you were feeling at that time is the why that carries you through where you're going.
Important. That's so important. It is so true. The check and balance along the journey. We often see the check and balance as, oh, I'm failing, or
Yeah.
okay, I've done something drastically wrong. And really, it's just a constant recalibration just to make sure that you're present at this moment
Yeah.
so that your next step forward is progressive.
Yeah.
And the way to always do that is to recognize that you don't always have to have the answers. And where it's get to that point where it gets so drastic, really recalibrate back with the purpose that will give you the answers.
Yeah.
And that's so that's I've certainly found that in my own journey. But in terms of your own journey and kind of the businesses and the activity you've been involved in over these years.
Yeah.
No, just give us a quick synopsis of that kind of business journey, and then I guess where we are now. We don't have forever and a day on the podcast to go through.
Yeah. I'll go
I know some of that journey for sure. But
I'll go as fast as I can with
where
it.
you are now. Just give a view of how that journey.
So as I say, my career background's in IT, electronics, healthcare. I had some major milestones when I was there. The funniest milestone, or the ironic milestone, was I was seconded to Apple in 1999, and then I left a very high-paying job with Apple because I thought Y2K was going to implode the whole IT industry. Okay, I moved into electronics, didn't really know much about electronics apart from plugging something in and switching it on. But over 5 years, I transformed the way in which patients can go to their GP surgeries with a touchscreen registration system and a call system that we all use here in the United Kingdom. Then I moved into mainstream healthcare, and I started to work in anesthetics, gynecology, obstetrics, ended up in renal. And I did small things like first clinical trials of the world's smallest dialysis machine, and I was designing dialyzer rooms into A380 Airbuses. So as you can see, my creative journey was one of those where I was always pushing the boundaries of where I was being able to go. But 2008 brought the global recession. I was in corporate healthcare. I was made redundant. I swung then from being unemployed to self-employed. The only thing I knew was healthcare contracting. So I was going back out to corporates, asking them to do interim contracting, tube light switched on, because a lot of people started coming back. And I thought, hold on, why don't I just take everyone that's unemployed, like me, and give them these kind of contracts to do in the interim? Little did I know, I got into business on human resources or outsourcing. After everything goes in cycles. So as the work was starting to become more readily available and recruitment freezes were dropping, I started to get offers to go back into corporate healthcare, six-figure salaries. But I thought, I've got freedom now. I can make more money. And then about four or 5 months later after that, I made an approach to a dragon about doing some work together. And the way I did this is I wanted to speak to him, but I didn't know how to get hold of him. So one Sunday while I was watching Formula One, I actually sat there and designed 300 plus permutations of the guy's email. And the one email that I sent him was, you're in recruitment, I'm in outsourcing. I go, we should work together. You're in resourcing, I'm in outsourcing. We should work together. And guess what? Out of that 300 plus email permutation, one hit. All of a sudden, I was invited to the starting or the launch of one of his new ventures, and I happened to be face to face with him. And I just said that one statement, and he knew exactly what I was. A couple of months later, there was an offer made on my business model. Basically, I didn't know what I was in at that moment in time. I didn't know I was business or anything. I was just doing, as I said, I'm binary. I'm just like, look, this is logic. This is what you're supposed to do. But then from there, when I sold the IP of Smarket to Alexander Mann, what happened is I moved on to doing some things like brand management, moved into areas of consulting, really trying to work on areas that would give me energy, things that I would feel I'm interested in or enthused on. So if you're going to make a choice of a career, go to something that you're going to enjoy rather than something that's just going to make you money, because you'll fall out of love with that eventually.
Yeah, you'll burn out of that.
So moved along. Then started to get a little bit bored of just doing the same thing, finding contracts, building a team, outsourcing, and taking 30% as the profit. So around about 2010, I started to look at how could I get into management consulting or training and that kind of advisory kind of position. And then in 2011, we had the riots in the UK, as you know. And that's kind of around about the time that I met you, Joel. And, I then came up with the concept for Youth Enterprise Live, which was going to be a social experiment to challenge young people in the United Kingdom to come forward and take ownership of their futures by looking at different options, whether it's getting money to start their own business, going for apprenticeships, going for jobs. And that actually, at the same time, launched me in 3 different directions. Off the back of that, I started Enterprise Lab, which looked at bridging the gap between education and enterprise. And that's where our kind of connections were really kind of fault and fixed. Alongside this, I started to work with the government on the Startup Loan Scheme, and you were again involved with all of that kind of stuff. And I introduced one of my clients as a delivery partner into that area. But alongside this, I also actually got an opportunity to do more meaningful work with the government in other areas as well. So I was being sent out by UKTI back then to other parts of the world to demonstrate entrepreneurship and its values through Britain. I was working with the British Council on Enterprise Africa. I was working with MIT on global advisory for their global startup workshops. So immediately I was pushed into this kind of area where, for me, it was just all about common sense. This makes common sense. And the other side of me is, as I said, I'm a little bit dim. I'm not a clever guy, basically, because what happened, and this is what goes for me in that fact. I'll go to places in the world that most people wouldn't go to. So I wasn't invited to New York and Dubai and Japan and all of that by the embassies. I went to Honduras, for example. San Pedro Sula is the murder capital of the world. 50
Oh,
people
great.
die a day in gun crime because of the drug cartels. I spent 2 weeks out there doing workshops, and one of the guys that was in my workshop, he goes, "You're a brave man." He goes, "You probably got one of those red laser dots from you on the drug." And most people will pack their bags and go home. I'm like, this is cool. I want to be here. I've been to South Sudan. I've been to Khartoum. I've been to Nigeria. I've been to all the nice places basically in the world. But what transpires out of this, Joel? Two things. One, I turned up when other people don't, and second, I learned so much more about myself. This is the pivot and transition of stop proving to yourself that you need to do things and start helping others prove. So I spent the depth of 8 years traveling the world, doing my own sort of keynote tour, working with hundreds of thousands of people, and all of it was just about moving people. And I think is in that time I kind of discovered where my purpose was. So we move from your why to your purpose, and my purpose has always been about helping other people, because I can do that because I started by helping myself. My very start point is I know I put my air mask on, so I know I can go off and fit other people's air masks. So returning from all of this, we got to the stage where Enterprise Lab had now grown into an international talent innovation, business innovation sort of agency. We were operating in 26 countries. We were working with over 150,000 people a year. And I was really just the what you would call a trophy wife, being positioned to win contracts. I spent 2 years during this period working with the government of Thailand, building a new program. And February 2020, I was in Thailand and I signed a 7-year contract worth £75 million with them to look at the innovation of 5,000 SMEs in the Thai ecosystem. The whole idea about this is taking family-run businesses into internationalization, so they could increase the GDP of the country through exportation. I'd signed this contract, gone on a plane, got back to the UK, and the news was 83 cases of COVID, and in Thailand, and they're saying Thailand's a hotspot. 4 weeks later, Boris Johnson put the country into lockdown. We all know what ensued after that, and 6 weeks after we went into lockdown, I saw a business of mine that I spent 12 years building to what it was absolutely just fall away. It disappeared. Corporate contracts dropped, because who wants an in-person training company in a pandemic? All PepsiCo, all of these companies were like, we don't need leadership training. We need to reinforce, basically. Double burnout. I came back out after painting 2 weeks of painting fences. It has a traumatic impact. I mean, you also know, I was becoming a person that most people wouldn't recognize, basically, in that particular way. The way that I was approaching social media, the way that I was contesting particular things, etc. It's just a different. It's just a different mindset.
Those situations and experiences change your sense of identity.
Do you know what it did, Joel?
Outlook on life. Yeah.
Do you know what it did? I forgot who I was. I forgot my why. I forgot my purpose. Because it was, for me, all of a sudden it was, why me? Instead of, what is my why? It's like, why has it happened to me? Why have I lost everything?
So your natural reaction is just to kind of that lashed out. Yeah,
You project it. So, my wife said, look, down tools, go and paint fences for 2 weeks. I did that, and I kind of figured out that, look, I need to do something. So I, I didn't have a company anymore, but I had a lot of IP in that company. So I sold the IP to other training agencies. I stayed on with them and helped them turn it into digital products.
Mm-hmm.
And then I thought, right, I've got my mojo back. What do I want to do? Where's my next adventure? So I started to look at the creative industries, and more insight. I was looking at the impact that the pandemic had had on the creative industries, and things like music, fashion, theatre, the arts. All of these areas were crippled during the pandemic. In the UK music industry, 1 in 9 jobs were lost, which will never be recovered again. And over 67% of people that worked in the film production agency industry were self-employed, and their government support measures wouldn't even touch the sides of supporting them. So I wrote a white paper during lockdown about the impact of inward investment into the creative industries for the UK, called 2030 CI. But secretly, Joel, what it was my blueprint to start my next business, basically.
Yeah.
I thought it's cool because I can do two in
You
one.
mobilized your own IP of yourself, so it's still on
Yeah.
purpose. It's still
So,
on.
so that's where we got to, and that brings us to 2021 when I launched 77 Ventures. 77 Ventures had a focus on two things. It was responding to the shift in consumer demand and consumer behavior to digitization and products, because obviously we were in lockdown. Remember the Zoom parties and everything. Everyone was just absorbing digital products. And the second part of it was the lack of acceleration of technology and digital capability in the creative industries. So we started as a boutique agency. We then started to do a bit of consulting. Then as you do your consulting and you become a victim of that success, people say, we've got this strategy, but we don't have the money. So we did cap raising and venture partnering. And then all of a sudden we thought, well, okay, maybe we can also offer sweat equity deals, fractional leadership and C-suites. 77 Ventures then went out of the creative industries into leisure, into entertainment, into sports, which then kind of engulfed the point where we get to the beginning of 2025 this year, that I decided that it's too big of a mammoth now to try and explain it to someone when they say, what do you do? So I turned it into a group, the 77 group, which has 77 Sports, that looks at sports asset management and advisory for innovation in sports and sports management. Ventures, which is our pillar, our foundational business, which is all about consulting, fractional leadership, and all of that kind of thing. But it's also the portco that holds our equity interests in other ventures that we're invested into. And media, which is where I have things like my own production studio, or we do consulting for things like festival, live events, entertainment and leisure into international ecosystems. So look, it's been a journey, and what I want anyone out there listening to this or watching this to take from this is your journey is never linear in any way, shape, or form. And it's not like I lost everything, but there was a point where I forgot who I was, and when I forgot who I was and what my purpose was and what my why was, it kind of ate me from inside out. And what it took me to defocus about myself and put my attention on something which was more important than me and bigger than me, to really help me find myself again. And so maybe there is a book in there that says entrepreneurship.
I'm seeing it. I'm seeing it. I can see the picture of you on the front. Like, I can see it.
In your life.
but seriously, mate, I'm really proud of you and that journey you've been on, because it's not necessarily about a business. And I'll say many times that a business is just a vehicle of transferring value to solve a problem.
Yeah.
And it's the power of that problem not even the size of it, but the power of it and what draws you to wanting to solve
Yeah.
that problem. That's so important. And that starts with an identification of self. Who are you? What are you here to do? And it's not a question you can answer in a sentence. In
Yeah.
fact, it's that lifelong question because, as you say, the journey is not linear. So it will take you through so many different meanders and turns that
Yeah.
your life will just become what it means today. It's and,
100%.
and tomorrow's another day. So I really commend the fact that you were able to take some time out and respect to your wife and family who and believe you me, I know what it's like when those who are most important to you give you that hug or that kick at the arse whenever you need it
Yeah.
because they know the real you.
Yeah. Yeah.
They don't know the fanfare and the titles and the authority and the profile. They know you. And that anchor is so important in those times when
Yeah.
sometimes go off track. So I think that's
No,
really cool.
and you touch on a really good point. And it's not just, it's never about you as the person. It's really the stuff that you have around you. I mean, you mentioned my wife, and you have a family, you have a wife, you have children, all of this kind of stuff. We've talked about in the past. There was a period of 8 years where my kids were very young, and I sacrificed that. The sacrifice you make. Actually, was I sacrificing? No, I think the way I look at it is they invested that time that they would have with me in me being able to then be able to provide for the luxuries that they have today. That's the way I look at it. I have a very perverse, odd way of looking at particular things because we do every day. We get up. Whether you're going to work or you switch on your laptop and you're running your own business, you're investing in yourself, and the people that are allowing you to do that are investing in you.
Yeah,
And
I understand that.
everything is about an investment. What we put into our bodies is a return on ingestion, basically.
Yeah,
So you put rubbish in, you're going to get rubbish out. In this particular way. And I just think in any, I'm going to say it, successful, and what success means is different to everyone. In any sustainable, let's put that word instead of success, in any sustainable life, business, relationship, it starts with the trust and the love and the belief that the people around you have in you.
100%.
And if they don't have that in you, you won't have it in yourself because you will automatically start questioning why. I mean, you know, I could have not listened to my wife. I could have been a stubborn bull during the pandemic and said, "You don't know nothing," and but you listen to your wife, guys. Happy wife, happy life, kind of thing, right? And but the mundane thing of painting fences was actually the breakthrough that I needed because I stopped feeling sorry for myself and started to think about what I could do about
Yeah,
the very thing, and it's and so relationships are really really important. So the bit of advice that I'm giving here is, you know, treat those around you with as much respect as they treat you.
yeah,
You invest in them as much as they invest in you, and know that entrepreneurship may be a lonely planet, but actually, if you can't talk to other entrepreneurs and share, there are people within your closer network, the intimate relationships that you have, where you've got to learn to be able to express how you feel or what your greatest fears are. Today, I have that relationship with my wife where she can tell me, "You should have done that. You should have done that," and I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, that's right." But then there are times where I'm like, "Look, I don't know if I'm capable of this anymore," and it's not like I'm asking her to shroud me with pleasantries or superlatives. Just, "Oh, Ken, you're the greatest."
yeah.
It's a case of actually, I'm a human. I'm not a robot in that particular way where you can't just keep spitting out results all the time.
That's right.
And and my life experience, as I say, it's no longer my expertise now. It's transformed into wisdom. And ironically, I'm the first one that has to have a spoonful of that wisdom.
But that's how it's supposed to be.
They're like,
Oh, man.
you have that, and they're like, "Have you had it first?"
Have
I'm
you
like,
had it first? All right, yeah, well, mate, I could talk to you all day on this, but time's running away with us. But
I know.
what I'd like you to do, just have you just got a final thought that you could share for the viewers of this video, and I guess why they should contact you on Open Intro?
Well, first of all, I wanna big up the team at Open Intro, because when this concept was introduced to me, and I had a chat with Dom and stuff like this, I was I was like, it's so simple and it's so relevant. Why hasn't anyone thought about doing it? Up till now. And so hats off to the fact that Open Intro is such a simple system. The second thing about this is, and this isn't a sales pitch to anyone that's listening, the people that are on this as experts like myself and others that are there, they're here not because of anything apart from being of service and value to you. So these are people that have been on their journeys and have that wisdom that they can impart. So use the platform liberally, reach out. It's not always about having to have sessions and conversation. There are so you can learn through just small anecdotal stories than anything else. Mm-hmm. So my kind of advice to anyone that's out here, whether you're in business or not business, if it's about confidence, relationship, whatever your ick is, basically, don't compare it to anyone else's, because you're running your race. You're not running anyone else's race. Remember that everyone is different and everyone responds and reacts to things differently. So just because person A did it this way doesn't mean that you have to do it this way. What you have to understand is, when you go through a journey and you have wisdom imparted on you through anecdotal stories or experience or stuff, is you've got to take out of that what you believed was the why and how it worked, and you need to understand how that would impact and influence you. No one else in the world can tell you how you are going to react, respond, or reply to something. Only you know that. So if you are giving yourself this false hope where you absorb so much of intel and wisdom, you're just basically a people pleaser or a glory hunter. You're just looking for the next silver bullet. Where the right thing about this is to take all of this kind of data in and be impartial with it, and be selfish for just for 1 minute and say, is that for me? Is that the way I should do it? Is that the way I've done it before? Because again, the answer to your questions lie in the challenge that you see right in front of you. It's already there. It's already there. You just can't see it because, like me, you've put the blinkers on and you're just focused on the result. Don't look for blame. Don't look for the silver bullet, but be open and keep your antennas open and look, you'll have a good life.
Fantastic. Ketan, I want to thank you so much for your time today. I know you're incredibly busy, so it's been amazing. And just listen to you and talking, and your wisdom just reminds you why we resonated all those years ago, and why I have the utmost respect for you, sir. So thank you very much for making the time today. And for those in Open Intro, please check out Ketan, get in touch with him, hit him up on LinkedIn. Just be serious about your conversation and just be your best self.
I might not be serious. I might not be serious.
You might not be, but you better be. Ketan, thank you very much again. Take care now.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.